Well, it is May the 7th, and it is a beautiful day, and it is time for a garden update. As you can see, the garden is coming along nicely. But we got a few things I want to talk about today. We had a freeze that we had to deal with. It was on April the 20th, and it was after our average last frost date, but it was even worse than a frosting. It was a freeze. And so we had to be careful and do some things to take care of it. You see here, I was able to move all of my potato plants inside the garage since they're in containers, as well as my sunflowers. And I wanted to be careful to do that because I actually almost lost my potato plants earlier, about a month earlier, due to a frost. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So happy to have sweet potato plants out, and also these North Georgia Candy Roasters. These are my carrots that are growing, and I've got some Desert King watermelon growing out here as well now. But these sweet potatoes are very susceptible to a freeze as well. So I had to put blankets over them. I've got some cosmos and some borage growing, as well as some grass growing out of the side of the hay bales, and sunflowers. And here are all my potato plants that are just really doing well. And I'm so pleased because I had almost lost them to a freeze. We had actually a frosting that came one day in early April, and it cut those potato plants down to a nub. But they came back. Here's some sweet peppers growing. Um, different. I got some yellow ones, some orange ones, some red ones, some green ones. We eat a lot of sweet peppers here at our house. So, boy, the lettuce is just doing fantastic. The cabbage here is doing pretty good, and I'm almost overrun with lettuce right now. And so we've been sharing a lot of that with our neighbor. I'm really excited about this winter squash. See this plant with the big, broad green leaves? That one right there. It is a North Georgia Candy Roaster winter squash. It's supposed to be really sweet, really productive, and it keeps for 6 to 12 months in storage. This is supposed to be a sweet potato plant. That is a sweet potato plant. I covered them during the freeze, but they are extra sensitive to cold. And most of them survived, but I did think I lost one. That one's doing pretty good. Sunflowers, isn't it pretty? The bees will love that. And that is a nasturtium. No flowers on it yet, but it's doing good. And the bees will pollinate the flowers, but they will also help pollinate the vegetables that are growing. Things like the tomatoes and the cucumbers. So these are cantaloupe, and also I have some sugar bush watermelons and those onions. Getting closer, but not ready just yet. I have a baby Cherokee purple tomato plant, just transplanted. Still got some growing to do. Carrots and a cucumber plant that I've transplanted. Over here we have another cucumber plant. It's called a lemon cucumber, which makes a round cucumber. And our broccoli is doing good. I've already actually harvested this plant a few days after I videoed this. And you can see the heads forming there. We eat a lot of broccoli here. I'm still learning a lot about growing broccoli. Marigolds without any flowers on them yet, but there they are. Onions, lettuce, and garlic. I pulled up a garlic just to see how it was doing. It was growing, and another tomato plant. Little patch over here is full of garlic and onions, but this huge plant is actually a collard plant that you've seen is gone, has bolted. These are potato plants growing in buckets, doing really well. I have a cabbage growing there and some weeds. Another cabbage plant, and that is I think a yellow pepper and a green pepper. And this is kale. And man, this thing was eaten down to a nub in the fall by our chickens. But once it had a chance to be babied, it grew beautifully. And I actually harvested this and still had enough to give away to two different people and had enough for our family. Not the greatest fencing in the world, but I will eventually replace it with some better fencing. These are all potato plants, and they're growing great. Over in the hay bales, I got lots of different things growing, a lot of lettuce and some watermelons as well. One of the problems that I've been having with the hay bales is that some of them, as they sort of break down, they let the dirt inside the center erode out. And so you see the stake I put in here. It's just to try to help push the bale back together to kind of keep the dirt inside. Um, I can actually grow. These are radish, by the way, and that's a cantaloupe. Um, but I can grow vegetables in the hay bales as well as the dirt that's inside the square. Another beautiful broccoli plant that's growing. Um, I'm still learning about growing broccoli. One of the things that I'm learning is you got to grow a lot of it because, we eat a lot of broccoli. And so the one plant doesn't really provide enough for us. I mean, it's enough for us to eat once, but we might eat broccoli 4 or 5 times a day. Beautiful sunflower here. And these carrots and sugar peas are just really, really taking off. Um, Ultimately, I'm going to plant potatoes, not potatoes, peanuts in this bed. So I'm hoping that these carrots and these sugar snap peas will finish out before too long because I need to plant the peanuts in here in the next month or so. We eat a lot of broccoli, so here's a tip. This is what we call daddy broccoli because it's the way daddy cooks it. Just put about a quarter cup of water in a skillet, add in some olive oil and a little bit of soy sauce, and just sort of boil it, sort of halfway boiling it, halfway steaming it, and it leaves it really crisp and it just gives it a good flavor. This is a radish plant. Already harvested a whole bunch of them, but this one was left over that wasn't ready yet, and now it is. But I've never grown radish before, but they are super fun and easy to grow. It takes less than 30 days from seed to harvest. And of course, you can cut them up and put them in salad, and you can also eat the greens. But think about these radishes. I'm not a huge radish person. I'll eat a few bites of it in my salad, but something that I've learned because I have so many of them, you can roast them in the oven and they taste really good. It takes away the peppery bite of them. And um, and since they grow so fast, you can plant them in an open, bare spot and they will grow and spread out their leaves and keep weeds from growing there. And then, of course, in just 30 days, you can harvest them, eat them, and then plant something else in their place. I put out traps to keep possums from getting in my chicken coop, but for some reason, a mourning dove wandered into the trap. He was fine, and I let him go, but it was kind of an interesting thing that happened. So my potato plants were growing so well that they were crowding up on each other. So I decided to spread them out a little bit more and also put them on these pallets just to kind of help with the drainage, because if the holes in the bottom of the buckets are flat on the ground. It makes it where they don't drain very well. So the way I had been dealing with that before was to put, hopefully you can see that, I put a little stick under there just to kind of keep it, make a little gap between the bottom of the bucket and the ground. But for ultimately, I wanted to put them on pallets like this, and that way they're a little more spread out and they can certainly drain well. But I'm really happy with these potatoes. And one of the reasons why I want to tell you is because at the beginning of April, we had a frost, which is not unusual. I think our last average frost date is April 15th. So I knew that I was putting the potato plants out before the frost, but I guess I've kind of understood that potatoes, which I've never grown before, but I learned or heard that they were a cold, not weather plant, but they could deal with cold weather. You want to get them out as early as you can because they don't like super hot summer weather. So I went ahead and put them out. And when the frost came, I thought, well, they'll be fine. It's not going to freeze or anything like that. They'll be fine. But I was wrong. The frost basically burned all of the leaves off of all of the potato plants. There was nothing left. It burned them all the way down to the stem, and they were just little tiny stems sticking out of the buckets. So I thought, oh great, I've lost my potato plants. But at the advice of others and just with faith and hope, I thought, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and maybe they'll bounce back. And boy, have they bounced back. You can see they have flourished, and I added dirt to the buckets to fill it almost all the way up to the top. And then I even went in just today and I filled them the rest of the way up to the top with this peat moss, just as a way to try to one, help keep the moisture in the soil when I water, and two, I've read that you need to keep sunlight off of the potatoes. So if there are any of the potatoes that may get up close to the surface of the soil, and they can get sunburned by the sun, and then that makes them inedible. So putting the peat moss on there was a way to keep sun from getting on the potatoes, even if they are still under the dirt, but just under the surface. One of the things I thought about is just when I go through the garden, it gives me a chance to think, and a lot of times to pray and let God teach me some lessons. And one of the lessons that he just reminded me of through this whole process with these potato plants is how when they were nearly destroyed by the frost that first time, it kind of taught me some lessons. One, sometimes things happen in our lives that feel like they just really beat us down. Maybe it even feels like they destroy us. There can be a lot of things you can go through in life, whether it's a divorce, or maybe you lose someone that you love, or maybe you sustain some kind of life-altering injury where you can't do things the way you used to do them. And it can feel like that's it. It's over. It's done. But just like with these potatoes, don't give up. Keep going. Keep doing what you can do, and wait it out. Because what I have found so many times is that God still has a plan. He still has something that he wants to do. Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's something that could only be done after whatever that tragedy or crisis was. So hang in there. Don't give up. Because right now, it might feel like it's hopeless, like there's nothing left. You could be like that potato plant that's burnt down to a nub, with just a nub sticking out of the dirt, and there's nothing left, no hope for the future. But you just keep caring for it, keep watering, keep nurturing, keep fertilizing, and let God and His Spirit do what He's going to do. He can bring new life, new growth, new flourishing, maybe even flourishing that you couldn't have ever even imagined. But in order for that to happen, you just got to hang in there. Hang in there and keep doing what you know is the right thing to do. Keep doing what God is kind of laying it on your heart to do. And hopefully you will find new life, new growth, new fruitfulness. But it takes a lot of faith. And I talked about that in my last video, how growing potatoes takes a lot of faith, because you can't see what's happening underneath the surface of the soil. And we can't see all of the things that God is doing in our heart. But if we have faith and we trust Him, we believe that something beautiful is happening. And even if it's not something that happens in this lifetime, if we trust in Christ, then in the next life, we will experience all of the perfection and all of the beautiful things that God ultimately intends for us to enjoy. Thanks everybody for checking out my garden update. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, inspired, or just had some fun. Or maybe you just want to pick at me for being the goofy person that I am. That's fine too. But anyway, I hope you know this, that whoever you are and whatever you do, God loves you. And I love you too. Take care.